Thank you, Ms. Walorski, and thank you, witnesses. What an all-star panel we have, and I want to especially say a warm West Texas hello to my fellow Texan and former Chairman Bill Archer, a legendary and luminary Lone Star leader. That's a lot of L's. That's kind of like my food, fuel, and fiber. I'm gonna have to work on that one, Chairman Archer. But you are. Let me say this: it's pretty cool for a newer member of this committee to have one fellow Texan who led the committee to work on incentives for self-sufficiency and for people to utilize their God-given talents through welfare reform, and then to work under the leadership of another Texan who had historic tax cuts that incentivized job creation, which we all believe that jobs are ultimately the greatest anti-poverty program going. So I'm grateful to Dave Camp, Chairman Camp, and everyone else who made their contributions as well. I listened to the history and the stories of the 90s. It's hard to believe it's been 25 years. It's also hard to believe you had a Democrat president, Bill Clinton at the time, using verbiage like we cannot continue to trap people in a cycle of dependency and poverty. I mean, you'll never hear those words in the context of welfare or welfare reform from this current administration or Democrats in Congress for that matter. I can only imagine what it was like then, but I can tell you today, if you are for work and if you're for responsible welfare programs and incentivizing people moving into that self-sufficiency and off of dependence and poverty, you will take the risk of being called, mean-spirited, anti-poor, and maybe even a racist. And so I want to ask the two chairmen, how did they work through this to keep the members focused on the outcomes and the righteousness of this endeavor in the face of the slings and arrows that I'm sure they took? And, any lessons they learned in terms of strategy or messaging so that we can, we can forge ahead with a message that all Americans, that will resonate with all Americans, that if you're an able-bodied adult, you ought to be either working or looking for work. Americans are generous, but there's an expectation of personal responsibility. So some lessons learned from the two chairmen would be great. And thank you all, and thank you again, Representative Walorski.